Am I being too harsh with Godzilla x Kong? The short answer is no. The longer answer is memes aside, there are 3 aspects of Godzilla x Kong which make me essentially loathe the film. I have a bunch of videos in mind that will go over various aspects of the film. The first one is already out, talking about the story and why it has so many holes in it. You could call it the hollow earth of filmmaking. But these 3 aspects I wasn't planning on doing a video on, so I might as well put them into this one so that I have them down somewhere. Those aspects are references, imagination, and tarnish. The first one I've already sort of spoken about in my last video. Not to any great extent, it was more of a sort of expletive at the end. References in Godzilla vs. Kong and now Godzilla x Kong are not well done. References aren't inherently bad. I mean, you don't blame the hammer for killing someone, you blame the person who's wielding it. Same goes for references. If you use them well, they can enhance a film. I mean, in a contextual reference, Godzilla Killing the Monsters. Oh my god, I mentioned that film, what a surprise. Burning Godzilla in Godzilla Killing the Monsters was a reference. It's kind of undeniable that it is. But the way it's used in the film enhanced the story. I mean, not only did it look amazing, did it make sense with what was going on, but an audience who's familiar with Godzilla vs. Destroyer would recognise the Burning Godzilla form. They would associate it with the death of Godzilla. So, at the end of the film, when he doesn't detonate, Ghidorah detonates, but then we don't see Godzilla, we're immediately like, oh no, has Godzilla died? And then he pops up out of the ruins and it's like, aha, we caught ya. You thought you died, he didn't. More likely as not, the audiences didn't immediately think, oh no, he's dead, but it was that little seed of doubt was put in there because of the visual reference. But on top of that, Godzilla in Killing the Monsters did sort of die, but didn't die. We thought he was killed, but then he was actually alive somewhere else recovering, which then sort of mimics what happens later on when he blows up Ghidorah and we think he dies from that, but doesn't. So basically, 2 fake outs in the same film. Go figure. But Godzilla, quote unquote, dies, recovers. I got better. Recovers from death, and then returns, almost rebirths. So this Godzilla burning form, which was originally associated with Godzilla dying, is now associated with Godzilla's rebirth. Almost like sort of a mirrored opposite sort of association. And this is all referencing another piece of media. Then you get to something like Godzilla vs. Kong, Godzilla x Kong, and we get references which don't do anything like that. The one I mentioned in my last video was the bloody hand. I recently re-watched Kong Skull Island, because I wanted to wash the taste of Godzilla x Kong out of my mouth. I wanted to get a good piece of kaiju media. And re-watching that scene with the bloody hand was it's like a breath of fresh air. Because you have the bloody hand, you have General Packard pointing at it going, look, he bleeds so we can kill it. Which is actually really weirdly a Predator reference, which I'll be talking about again in a second. You then get the conversation with one of the soldiers who says about enemies don't necessarily exist until you go looking for them. Like, you looking for them creates them, which is sort of what happened it did actually happen in Kong Skull Island. Kong wasn't their enemy until they went to his island and started bombing it. But then you also get Bill Randa holding his hand up over the bloody handprint with his own injured hand. To make it's essentially the "we're not so different, you and I" trope, but it's completely unvoiced. It also adds into it. The more you look at this, is what I mean. A director or an author can do something to get one message out of it, but depending on how well it's done, you can get a lot more messages out of it. I.e., Bill Randa holding his hand up to be like, "Oh look, not so different. We're all humans. We're not all humans. We're all like living creatures. We're not some supernatural thing." But you can also get the message out of it of, is Kong the monster? Or is Bill Randa the monster? Is the monster that you fought? Or is the monster that brought you to the fight? Those sorts of interesting questions. And then you can add on to that the fact that General Packard slowly but surely becomes a monster in the film. So it's like a monster introducing them to a monster to create a monster. Monsters creating monsters. And it's really interesting. It's a great discussion topic. Cut to Godzilla vs. Kong with the bloody handprint on the door. Interestingly, when I looked back at this to see if there was any additional context that I missed, I hadn't. But when Kong gets to the door and you have the camera panning up the mountain, the handprint isn't there. I found that really... I saw that, I was like, no, wait, hold on a minute, I can't see it. Is that it? Is that... No, that's not... Yeah, no, it's just not there. I thought maybe it was hidden, a detail wasn't showing up, but no, it just wasn't there. I find that hilarious. It was almost like the handprint was an afterthought. Anyway, there's a bloody handprint on the door leading into... I call it a throne room. I've heard other people call it a temple. But yeah, bloody handprint on a door. But it's not an actual bloody handprint. It's paint, maybe, which doesn't really make a lot of sense because you don't see this anywhere else inside of this construct. There are no paintings on the wall. There are no other hand signals anywhere else. There's nothing. This is the only place in which this bloody handprint has been painted on the door. Worse, it's outside, which theoretically means that that's more likely to be worn off. So if there were other paintings anywhere, they are more likely to be preserved inside the building, the construction, than outside where they're affected by the elements. But then on top of that, why is there only one handprint? You can imagine this is like a like on doors nowadays, you have like push or pull, depending on what you need to do with the door. And this bloody handprint could be a con equivalency to a sign saying push, which is why Con decides to push. But Con pushes with both hands. How does he know to do that? Well, theoretically, there would be two handprints, one on each door. But that would mess up the visual, so they only put one on there. But why would that mess up the visual? Because they want to connect with the bloody handprint from Kong Skull Island, and if there was two handprints on there, it wouldn't work. And potentially, that could have some greater meaning to it. And I suppose you could drag out some meaning like that's like what's left of Kong's species, that's their last mark on the door or something. And him putting his hand on it is him trying to connect with his ancestors or something along those lines. I suppose you can get more out of it if you tried. I'm not going to, because I don't think it's that deep. More evidence for that in a second. I say a second, who knows how long this is going to be. But that red hand on the door is pure and simply key jangling to make people go, oh, well, it's like the bloody handprint in Kong Skull Island. And then you start thinking about it more and realise how much that doesn't work and how badly implemented it was to the point where it doesn't appear on the door when Kong gets to the door initially. Yeah, the bloody handprint in Godzilla vs. Kong is bad, is badly implemented. It's just an attempt to make people go, oh look, it's the thing. But that is better than the one in Godzilla X Kong. Because the one in Godzilla X Kong was put into the trailer as a deliberate attempt to get people excited. I saw all sorts of discussions from people about, oh, is this the Scar Kings? Is this Ginger Kong's symbol? Oh, the one in Kong Skull Island. Oh, that definitely didn't look like Kong's handprint. That was definitely like his people, the Ginger Kong's symbol. That definitely was that was definitely what that is. And now we're seeing it here in Godzilla X Kong. And look, in the trailers, when you see, it shows the close-up of his face, it really looks like he's got like a red handprint on his forehead. Oh, that must be his symbol that he puts on like the Kongs and the other apes. Then the film comes out, and no. No, it's nothing to do with anything. It's just a bloody handprint on a wall. Theoretically, that makes sense, because the apes would have smashed up the Monarch outpost, and then maybe their hands got bloody, and then they put their hands on the wall as they were climbing around. But why would you then show that in the trailer if it doesn't actually mean anything? The reason they show that is because it looks like the one from Kong Skull Island, and they want to get people intrigued and interested, and oh look, it's the thing that I remember. So then the film comes out and doesn't have anything to do with anything, it's just there because it's there. And Ginger Kong doesn't use a red handprint for anything. He doesn't put that on his soldiers or anywhere in his camp or anything. It's just, yeah, it's an empty reference there to make you go, oh look, a thing. And if this was the only reference like that in the film, that would just be a singular piece of incredible annoyance. But it's not the only reference in the film. The film opens with the words, "Somewhere in Hollow Earth." This is a direct connection to the beginning of Godzilla vs. Kong, where the message comes up, somewhere on Skull Island. The very, very, very first time I saw that message, I was intrigued because, oh, are they trying to, like, hide something? They're trying to make something mysterious. Ooh, what's going on here? Every single time after that, every single time I've seen that message after seeing it for the first time, it annoys me because it's trying to hide the fact that there's this bloody great biodome on Skull Island. That's all it's doing. That's all it's trying to hide. Oh right, I need to talk about that. Godzilla X Kong proved me wrong on something. In my Godzilla vs. Kong critique, multiple videos, God knows which video it was, I said, well, I offered the binary choice of, was the biodome created before the storm rolled in, or was the biodome created after the storm rolled in? The main reason being, if it was built before the storm, that made more physical sense, but it then affected Monarch's moral standing, because they didn't save the Iwi tribe with the dome from the storm. But if it was built after the storm, that saves Monarch morally? But then how the hell do you build this gigantic dome in the middle of a unending storm? But then, because Godzilla X Kong showed me that when they had like a documentary footage showing Jaya being rescued by some soldiers, and then the camera pans up and Kong's there, which meant Kong wasn't in the dome. when the storm hit, which meant the dome wasn't there, which meant the dome was built afterwards. It's like, right, yeah, so the dome wasn't there when the storm rolled in, which meant they built it afterwards, which meant then it's physically impossible that that happened, but the story now has to have that happen. I'm not sure which would have been better, the moral problem or the physical problem. Actually, no, I know exactly what is better. The moral problem would have been better because then it just makes Monarch look bad. But the physical problem, this is now a physical impossibility, then is now included in the story. Ah! Anyway, back to where we were. So yeah, that message at the beginning of Kong Skull Island is there to hide the fact that there's a biodome on the island. The same message appearing at the start of Godzilla X Kong saying somewhere in Hollow Earth does nothing. It literally does nothing. And it's not somewhere, they are near an outpost. So why is that there? It's there because people will go, oh, it's the same thing from the last film. And that's it. What else have I got written down here? Godzilla breathes down Scylla's throat when he kills her. Which, yeah, he did that to the female Muto in his opening film Into the Monsterverse. And that was like one of the most popular things that most memorable things from that film. He didn't do that in Godzilla Killing the Monsters, so he didn't really have the opportunity to do it. Mechagodzilla tries to do it to Godzilla in Godzilla vs. Kong in GVK, even though Mechagodzilla doesn't know Godzilla does that. Godzilla never did it to Ghidorah, so Ghidorah wouldn't know about it, so why is he trying to... That does actually make more sense if Renzo Ozawa was still controlling Mechagodzilla. But because of the whole rewrites going on with Godzilla vs. Kong, that is no longer a thing. So that scene doesn't make any sense. Well, it isn't the only one in GVK. But then Godzilla uses the breathing down the throat kill move in GXK, which technically does make sense because it's Godzilla doing it to an enemy, but it just reinforces the whole thing of that moment was amazing and memorable, and it's one of the favourite things that people have taken from the film, from the 2014 film. And then it's just thrown in to Godzilla X Kong with no pomp or ceremony or anything. It's just sort of, and there you go, he's done it. Which then just makes the scene even worse than it already was. That's going to be a discussion for one of those videos, one of my Great Ron videos. What else? Mothra. Literally everything to do with Mothra. The wall carving, which is the exact same wall carving we see in the Chinese temple. Even though, as far as we're aware, those two cultures have nothing to do with each other. It's one thing to have the same Titan as inspiration for a wall carving, but even the Monsterverse itself shows various depictions of Mothra depending on the culture and the art style being used. So the Iwi making the exact same wall carving as some random tribe in China doesn't make any sense. And no, I am not accepting that the Chinese tribe was also Iwi, because that was never mentioned ever anywhere. So again, they literally just reused the carving to go, oh look, it's that. Same with Mothra carrying Jaya. This version of Mothra never did anything like that. And there was a whole camp full of people when Mothra woke up in Godzilla Killing the Monsters. A whole camp full of people in front of Mothra. She never picked any of them up to then carry them to the Monarch base to go, oh hey guys, look, I brought someone with me. And if your answer to that is, well, why, that's not going to hold any plot. That's not going to be significant to the plot, is it? That's not going to do anything. And my answer is, no, it's not, is it? So why would she do that with Jaya? Of course, then the answer is, well, Jaya talks to Godzilla. Why does Jaya need to talk to Godzilla? Why can't Mothra talk to Godzilla? Why can't Mothra, splitting up the fight with her, like, flapping her wings and causing a great gust of wind, she breaks up the fight and then lands on Kong to then stop Godzilla, and then Godzilla goes, oh, okay, maybe I won't kill Kong then. But no, they have to bring on Jaya, and then Jaya has a psychic conversation with Godzilla. Which, even that is a reference to the psychic conversation Godzilla had, I can't remember the character's name, but the psychic conversation Godzilla had with the psychic girl in Godzilla vs. Biollante, which I put the clip of in my video. And again, it's just an empty reference, because he didn't need to do that in the film. And it looks weird in the film. It's just, oh. And like I said, yeah, the fact that Mothra gets summoned by a special girl, Jaya in this case. When in the Mothra films it was the twins. I can't remember. Are they Fates? No, it's not Fates. Oh god, what were their names? My brain. The twin girls were the special twin girls who would summon Mothra with their singing, and supposedly had some kind of special psychic connection with Mothra. Jaya doesn't have that. She is just a psychic girl. Which makes even less sense that she is able to summon Mothra, because they already have a psychic woman in the Iwi tribe. So why didn't she do it? You could have had, and this would have been really far out there, but considering what the rest of Godzilla X-Con is like, this would have been much, much better. They arrive at the Iwi village, and then a twin Jaya meets them. And there's two Jayas. And it's like, oh, twins. Completely unrelated twins. That would have been completely random, completely impossible. But yeah, like I said, Godzilla X-Con is really stupid the rest of the time, so that would have been brilliant to do. And then you have both girls go up to the pyramid, and then you see Jaya's hand doing the dissolving thing. You go, oh no, is Jaya going to die? And then maybe the other twin, the Iwi twin, like, takes over instead, and she dissolves, because she can see the connection that Jaya has with Dr. Andrews and stuff. It could have done a lot you could have done a lot with it, but they didn't do it, so none of that is there. So this whole scene is just Jaya just so happens to be the special psychic. Not only is she psychic, but she's a special psychic. Oh, for God. And it's all just, well, yeah, in the Mothra films, the girls summoned Mothra, so now we've got a girl summoning Mothra. Oh my God. Oh, I'm going to have to edit it down so much. But yeah, I already mentioned that Godzilla talking to Jaya is a reference to Godzilla vs. Biollante, which kind of negatively, majorly affects Godzilla X-Con, because it just, that whole scene is massively anticlimactic. It's like Kong and Godzilla are fighting, and then suddenly, oh wait, no, there's a girl here, let's stop. And Godzilla's not done that with anyone anything. It just comes out of nowhere. It comes out of nowhere. Unless, of course, you've seen Godzilla vs. Biollante and you've seen it before, in which case you go, oh, it's like The Thing, which is exactly the problem. Same thing goes for Godzilla being pink. The whole discussion before, I have a video on it, the whole discussion before the film came out was, is Godzilla being pink a good thing, or does it work? And my ultimate takeaway from my whole video on it is, we had to wait and see what the film did with it. What the film did with it was shit. And the only explanation as to why Godzilla turns pink is because it's a reference to Godzilla 2000. That's the only reason. Same goes for his eating of the power plant in France. Was it France? I think it was France. Wherever it was that Godzilla ate the power plant, it's the exact same thing. because the way he eats the power plant doesn't work with how he normally absorbs radiation. The reason they did it that way is because they needed him to do it quick. We haven't seen Titans do that in this universe. Ghidorah physically bit down on a power transformer in a city. The Mutos ate the bombs, the missiles, and then Godzilla just sat next to a source of radiation. To see Godzilla absorbing the radiation the way he does in this film looks so weird, so unnatural, so completely and utterly sci-fi. But it does make you think about Godzilla 1984, where he breaks into a power plant and just sort of absorbs the radiation from the nuclear core. And that's all I can think of for why he does it the way he does it. That and the film needs to be quick. We can't have anyone thinking. We got to go quick. It's exactly like Shin Godzilla. Someone put that in my comments, by the way. They said Godzilla X Kong is just very quick. Is that all the scenes happen so fast, it doesn't give you time to think about it, which is similar to Shin Godzilla. I'm so tempted to make a video, like a YouTube short, saying Godzilla X Kong and Shin Godzilla, very similar. And see how many people lose their minds. Godzilla X Kong also references things that aren't in the MonsterVerse or in the Godzilla franchise as a whole, and this starts to leak into the whole imagination problem. So I've already referenced it before. I've referenced it twice now. I'm going to say it again. When Kong entered Ape Land, and it came up with the text across the screen. I said, "Oh, this is the subterranean Hollow Earth or subterranean world or something like that." Even though the Hollow Earth is the subterranean world. And I immediately thought it was Ant-Man Quantumania, because it's Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania. Everyone forgets the Wasp bit, including me. In that, they had already set up that there was the Quantum Zone, which is like when you shrank down, you eventually got into this sort of infinitude, or eternity, but it's not quite, called the Quantum Zone, which is basically as small as you can get. And then they came up with, but there's also the Void, there's also the Subatomica, and then there's, I can't even remember, Quantum Zone? No, was that the Quantum Zone? Was this? I can't remember. There's so many layers going on there. I'd have to watch the film to get them all in order. And I can't be bothered to watch that film again. That film was terrible. I'm not even sure the film had it all in order. But essentially, yeah. Ant-Man said, the lowest you can go is the Quantum Zone. Then Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumanium said, no, there's a couple of more. There's a couple more layers you can go to. And that's what happened with Godzilla X Kong. Godzilla vs. Kong completely retroactively changed the Hollow Earth, so it doesn't really work with the previous films anymore. Then Godzilla X Kong said, so you thought the Hollow Earth was like the lowest you can go? Haha, no, there's somewhere lower. I'm like, for God's sakes. Is the next film going to be Godzilla and Kong, and then there's going to be another lower layer? That's actually a story I have an idea for, but I'll put that into another video. What else have I got? Body being ripped in half by Kong, and then he gets covered in its gore, which is green, so it gets past the sensors. Cowards. That just reminded me of the scene from The Predator, the most recent Predator film, where he picks up the bear and, like, I can't remember if he stabs it or rips it or something, whatever he does. He holds it above his head and gets covered in the blood. And I immediately thought, it's like the scene from The Predator. What else have I got here? When Kong lures the apes into his traps, it reminded me a lot of the scene from the first Predator film, where Schwarzenegger tries to lure in the Predator sees the trap, tries to go around it, and then Schwarzenegger activates the trap anyway. That whole scene is very well set up, and it shows a lot of, like, it shows the ingenuity and intelligence of Schwarzenegger's character, and then the surprising, like, we obviously know that the alien is intelligent enough to have space travel and whatnot, but for Predator to then see the trap, it's a surprising, like, awareness of surroundings and whatnot. It's basically showing the Predator to be more intelligent than we thought he was. And then to have him go around the trap, nice bit of subversion, and Schwarzenegger activating the trap afterwards. It's like he's thinking on his feet. He's ingenuity, but showing his ingenuity. I can't think of the other words right now. We then have that in Godzilla X Kong. Basically the same thing happens. Kong lures them into a trap. The apes go, oh no, trap here. They go over the trap, and then Diddy Kong activates the trap and kills them. Kong doesn't have a plan B. If it hadn't been for Diddy Kong, Kong would have been dead. I mean, he should have been dead before, but he was definitely going to be dead then. So what this shows is Kong didn't have a plan B. He didn't have the initiative, the ingenuity. Basically, it showed Kong being a bit of an idiot. The fact that they were there, I'll go through it in my video. The fact that Kong was there at his traps after what he'd been through and from where he'd come from, ignoring all of that, him failing to get them with the traps and having absolutely no way to counter that when it happens, and having no way of dealing with that when they notice the trap, he's an idiot. All of that in one, like, short sentence. Godzilla X Kong stole from Predator, but where Predator had like a full plan and setup for it, Godzilla X Kong doesn't, and it just makes everything worse. But yeah, that's a couple of things in now reference to Predator. What was the other? Crocodile Dundee, I mentioned. Because Kong picks up a rock. When Kong fights the apes, he kills two of them. One of them runs away. That's the last one's running away. He picks up a rock and lobs it a really long distance and hits the ape on the back of the head. I immediately thought of Crocodile Dundee. In Crocodile Dundee, the first one, the second, I can't remember. He's in New York, which might be the second one. A mugger mugs somebody, knocks over some shopping as he's running away. Crocodile Dundee picks up a can of something, lobs it, and then a couple of seconds later the can hits the mugger on the back of the head, knocks him out, and everyone cheers. And it's a great scene because it shows like Crocodile Dundee thinking on his feet, shows his skills and talents and all that sort of thing, and it shows everybody appreciating what he's just done. In the Godzilla X Kong scene, Kong has just killed two apes. He definitely kicked one off a cliff. I can't remember what he did to the other one. Again, I'm not watching the film again anytime soon, so someone can tell me in the comments. But then the third one goes to run away and he just throws a rock at him. Actually, nothing comes of that. I don't think anything comes of that, because that ape runs away. So then you'd think he'd run back to camp, tell Ginger Kong, and then Ginger Kong would be ready for Kong when he arrives. But apparently he's not, and Kong arriving just seems to be a surprise to everybody. It's sort of it. That's going to have to be in the next in another video. But yeah, the rock throwing in Godzilla X Kong is a direct comparison and almost certainly a rip-off of Crocodile Dundee. Whereas Crocodile Dundee had a narrative purpose to it, Godzilla X Kong, it doesn't. It's just there and it causes lots of problems. And the last thing I wanted to mention is just a massive trope that a lot of things do, which people complain about, is the enemy is like the hero, but evil. In this case, Ginger Kong is Kong, but evil. this is a massive trope that's used by a lot of superhero stories, and a lot of stories in general, really. But in the Monsterverse, where there are so many creature designs, when you have all this variety of creatures to choose from, and then your enemy is Kong, but ginger, it kind of shows a lack of imagination. And again, I'll talk about it more in the video, but yeah, I found him very, 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 very disappointing. But this leads into my point about a lack of imagination. After making my videos on Godzilla vs. Kong, a couple of videos came out, well, I saw a couple of videos in which Adam Wingard talks about some of the elements that he put into Godzilla vs. Kong. One of them was the Ghidra skull, and he revealed that somebody told him that Ghidra was psychic, so he put it into the film. He didn't check whether that was a thing or not, he just did it. And he also explained how Mechagodzilla, he was told that Mechagodzilla was going to be in the film. But that just shows like corporate meddling, like other people telling the director what to do. But a bunch of other things that happened in the film and in Godzilla X Kong just shows that Adam Wingard doesn't really have... this is going to sound really weird considering what Godzilla X Kong is like, and especially recently, I think Omniviewer mentioned it, how Ginger Kong is like an evil bad guy in a fiery lava land with like a big monster pet. Like it's some sort of fantasy album cover come to life. But that's kind of what my problem is. All these things sound tropey, like the bad guy having a big monster pet, like he's a James Bond villain, or like he's out of a fantasy film or fantasy album cover. These old places that have giant bones all over the place, like it's an Indiana Jones film or something, which doesn't really make sense with the fact that these are giant monsters and then there's even bigger bones lying around. That just causes all sorts of problems. The fact that the bad guy's lair, shall we say, is covered in lava. It's meant to make him look evil. Look, fire and brimstone and all that, that's all evil, isn't it? But Godzilla's home was filled with lava. And that was Godzilla's home. So why is that same visual being used to show how evil the bad guy is? And it's not like there is a connection between those two places, because with Godzilla that was an area of high radiation. In Godzilla X Kong, there's none of that. As far as we are aware, the apes don't thrive on radiation. They should, but they don't. Which then brings into the question, are they titans? That's a good point, actually. If they don't thrive on radiation like titans do, are they true titans? Question for another time, I suppose. Oh, can I just put... We had Tiamat. Is a big snake. Apparently that's from one of the comics. Okay, fair enough. That's taken a design from the comics and putting it into the film. I suppose Tiamat is... Making Tiamat just a snake, considering other depictions of Tiamat in popular media. But then beyond that, you then have a giant snake turn up elsewhere in the film, and it's completely unrelated. It's just another giant snake. And then there's a really, really giant snake, like a flipping world serpent type thing, dead, but still, a giant snake serpent skeleton in the subterranean ape land Hollow Earth bit. It's like, okay, we seem to be getting an inordinate amount of just like big serpents. And again, which just links back to the whole, the bad guy is just the good guy but evil. It shows a distinct lack of imagination. It's like, we need some monster for Kong to fight. Big snake. Didn't he fight a big snake last time? Yes. So, okay, he needs to get across this. We're going to put this canyon in. We're going to put like a skeleton across there to make it look interesting. Okay, big snake skeleton. We need someone for Godzilla to fight. Snake. There are other animals. Which then, of course, then they go to, okay, Kong needs to kill some animals at the beginning of the film. What are we going to do? Wolves. Okay, are they going to be interesting looking wolves? Are they going to be wolves that like Triceratops, like neck frills on them? Are they going to have some weird spines? Are they going to have some other interesting details that makes them visually distinct from just wolves? You can lower their eyes a bit. Yeah, so as much as Godzilla X Kong is just this big fantasy film, this big silly fantasy film with lots of like all these interesting elements and whatnot in it, there seems to be a distinct lack of imagination when it comes to it as well. For everyone who says contradictions can't exist, I present to you the imagination and lack thereof of Godzilla X Kong. The last thing I wanted to point out, I can't really connect this to the other one, so this is going to be quite a blunt, complete lack of a segue for this one. The tarnishing of good moments. I talked about this in my video, Kong's best and worst moments, in which I went through Godzilla vs. Kong and tried to find a good moment for Kong. I had a bad one ready to go. I wanted to get a good one. But every time I found what I thought was a good one, there was something wrong with it. Either in its setup, in its meaning, and there was always something wrong. So it'd make me go, oh, that's a good moment. No, wait, hold on a bit. No. Godzilla X Kong has that problem by the barrel full. I talked about how I liked the fact that Mothra came back. But how she came back and how she was used, she just popped into existence and then she was essentially a ferry for Jaya. And she saved the humans a bit, I think. Did she die? I can't remember if she got blown up by Frostzilla or not. God, I need to watch that film again. That was the that was the end fight scene, and by that point I was just Godzilla being in the Colosseum. I liked that. Again, I went into why. The fact that he destroys a bunch of stuff as he's moving around, you can sort of say, okay, he's trying to maneuver around the city as best he can, but he's destroying it. Yeah, okay, fine. So why did the director put that into the film? Oh, because he saw his cat in a cat box once and wanted to do that with Godzilla. Now that is entirely meta. So you can ignore that. Okay, are there any other problems with Godzilla sleeping in the Colosseum of Rome? Yes, because he's there because he killed Scylla, who was there for reasons unknown. Again, that just keeps happening. All the good bit. There's a bit at the end which nearly. I was watching it and I was thinking to myself, if this was in another film, if this was better written, if this had better setup, this might have got a tear out of me. And it's the bit where Andrews is saying to Jaya, if you want to stay with the Iwi, then I completely respect your decision. You can stay here. The actual line is something like, this is your world now. And Jaya says, but you're my world. And I saw that on the screen. I saw it happen. And I thought to myself, this should have got a tear out of me. It should have. But it didn't. Because the entire setup was so awful. And there was so little focus on the human characters. Which again goes into my... People complain about really poorly done human characters in monster films. Godzilla King the Monsters gave you a fuck ton of really well written characters in a monster film, and people complained about it. Godzilla vs. Kong, and now, even worse, Godzilla X Kong, has provided you with a fuck ton of really terribly written characters, and people are clapping like fucking seals. And that's why I don't think I'm overreacting with Godzilla X Kong. Blimey, this went on for a little bit longer than I thought it was going to be. Right, I'm going to stop here. So, in short, I might as well just put a timestamp to this bit in the video and say, if you don't want to listen to me ramble, just go to this bit. There's loads of references in the film which are literally just, oh look a thing, and have no greater meaning to them, and in some cases actually ruin the film. There's references to things in the Monsterverse, references to things in the Godzilla franchise, and things to just other videos and films in general, all of which are done better in their original medias, and the references in Godzilla X Kong just make things worse, or are just there to purely go, oh look a thing. Despite the film being essentially at this point high fantasy with like ridiculous technologies and environments that don't make sense and magical powers essentially, despite all of that, the film feels incredibly unimaginative because so much is taken from other places. Even the high fantasy elements just seem to be tropes. And something I didn't really mention, even stuff like the Hollow Earth is just taken from conspiracy theories. To the point where you have those two pyramids that the Iwis use. They are pyramids, which in reality are built out of stone because it's the easiest. A pyramid is a really easy way of just building up stone. A stone structure in the shape of a pyramid is really easy to do and structurally sound. But these are giant crystals. Why would you carve crystals into the shape of a pyramid? You wouldn't. You would stack them up. So having two pyramids, one on top of the other, and they've been carved into that shape, it doesn't make any... Why would you... And again, because pyramids are popular in conspiracy theories, so oh look, pyramids. And then, even good stuff that happens in the film is tarnished by other stuff that happens in the film. To the point where any good thing that you can take from the film, if you think about it for 5 seconds, it gets ruined. And that is why I am not treating Godzilla X Kong too badly. If anything, I'm not treating it bad enough. And the world is not treating it bad enough. Give it time. Give it plenty of time. Once everybody's gone to see the film, and all the Twitter posts that get retweeted by the official account saying, oh wow, this film was amazing. Once that stops happening, and people sit down and start thinking about the film, then the reputation of Godzilla X Kong is going to hit the fucking floor. And then, maybe, we might get a different director for the next film. We might get a good film. But who knows? I'm going to stop there. I need a drink. I hope this has been even slightly entertaining. Last but not least, thank you for watching.